Start the recording.
Good afternoon, all my friends around the world. Welcome to this third webinar, Consolfood. Michael Bonk will moderate the session. Okay? Michael, please.
Yes, also from me, welcome to our third Consolfood webinar. My name is Michael Bonke, the German pronunciation, and I'm a member of the La Sola initiative for spreading solar cooking in Germany, and also a member of the organizing committee of the Consolfood conferences. As Celestino already said, please switch off your cameras and your microphones. This webinar will be recorded and we will make the MP4 files, the videos, available on our website consolfood.org, as we did before with our first two presentations. If you go down with your mouse pointer to the bottom of your screen, you will see a menu appearing, and please click on chat if you want to ask questions during the presentation. We all suffer under the Corona crisis, more or less, and I am glad that Celestino turned the lockdown into something positive by creating this new way of bringing the solar cooking family closer together. He explained this in our first webinar. You find the recording on our website. And as we get more and more acquainted with this conference software, like Zoom, what we are using here, I encourage you all to meet in small groups and keep in touch and make the best of the present situation. Here's a map which shows where the organizers and our speaker live. Celestino is our host, and we thank the University of the Algarve in Faro that we are allowed to use their Zoom license for this meeting. Dave lives in the southwest corner of England in Cornwall. He had a lot of email traffic during the last days, and he is the one who sent you the invitation with the Zoom link. I myself live in Düsseldorf in the west of Germany, and our invited speaker, Luther Kruger, is now waiting for us in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the north of the United States. But before we go to him, I want to show you where our participants come from. This is based on an Excel sheet Dave sent us in the afternoon, and I heard there are a few people who joined us later. But you see, 62 people have registered, and most of them come from India, see 9 from the United States, 8 from Portugal, 8 from Spain, and so on. So really, listeners from all continents are present now. So, and now you see on the left side, this picture is a screenshot from a podcast. 10 years ago, in May 2010, I started this podcast together with a friend, and my part was to make interviews with members of the solar cooking and drying community. And on our podcast, it's called Sunport. You see the address below. You can listen to 21 interviews about solar cooking in German and 31 in English. In January this year at the Consolfood conference in Faro, I met Luther Kruger, and he told me about his big collection of solar cookers. Somebody has his microphone open.
Make sure it's always facing me. That way I get the microphone.
Okay. At the Consolfood this year, I met Luther Kruger, and he told me about his big collection of solar cookers. And when I thought about who could be a good speaker for the next webinar, I found that it might be a good idea to let Luther show us his collection and tell us a few words about his solar branches, because I think this is a good idea for everybody. We have changed our program a little bit after our rehearsal 2 days ago. Luther will present us many different cookers, and if you have questions please type them into the chat box. Dave will monitor this chat and ask your questions to Luther. So the whole presentation might become a little longer than we planned before. And so we leave out the open space in the end, what we initially had planned. So we plan to be ready about 7 o'clock p.m. Lisbon time. So this was my introduction. And now I hand over to Luther. Luther, you can hear us? Luther, hi. Please switch on your microphone. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why it turned off. I had it on. Okay, I'm
fine.
here.
Okay, now, please, maybe you begin with a short introduction of yourself, and then
Sure.
you show us around.
Sounds good. Yes, Luther Kruger. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's at the very north end of in the middle of the United States. And in 2004, I ran across a store near where my brother lived in Norfolk, Virginia, where they sold solar cookers, solar panels, all sorts of off-the-grid stuff. And I'd already been interested in it, but I just had never seen one right there. And I ended up buying a book. Here, I'll show you the book. Actually, the store owner gave it to me. It's Cooking with the Sun by Dan and Beth Hallisey. And it's got a DIY, a do-it-yourself plan for making a box cooker just out of plywood, cardboard, aluminum foil, glue. Anyone can make one. I brought it home. I made a bunch, gave them to our nieces and nephews, and cooked with them, and decided to get a few more. And I'll show you the one that I actually put together from their book. Up here beside, recognize the sun oven on the right. Plywood there. Plywood box to the left of the sun oven. That's the Hallisey model. He calls it also the 3060 model. So you can tip it up on its side if you want to cook in the winter, because it'll catch the sun at the better lower angle, or on a regular angle, you can do it for spring through the fall. And ordinarily, it'll have 4 reflectors, 1 on each side, to send more sun into it. I hit approximately 300 Fahrenheit or 150 Celsius just about every time I cooked. It really got me interested, and I started to just collect cookers. And what I'll do through this webinar is I'll just show a few other box cookers, then I'll show the first parabolic that I got, and then I'll move on to panel cookers. And if we do have time, I could probably show Fresnel and the vacuum tube cookers that I have. I don't have them all out here. It got really breezy really quick, so I had to switch over and put a few away that were just being blown around in my yard. So that's the Hallisey model. That's the one that I used to start off with. Then I ended up getting a sun oven. That's probably the granddaddy of the box cookers in the United States anyway. I don't know how common it is outside, but I know that a lot of people have it outside of the United States. Very good cooker. It'll hit up to 400 degrees. I've had it up to 400 or about 180 Celsius. And so you can cook just about anything in there short of braising and frying. I find it to be a really good design, easy to use. It has a tray that swings back and forth to keep the pot level. It collects the moisture, so you have to put a towel in there now and again when it builds up. But otherwise, it's one of the best cookers out there. A couple other box cookers. One to the left of the Hallisey model. That's the Sun Taste. That's one of the really nicest new models out there. It's made entirely of cork body with a lining of reflective aluminum, a glass cover, and then another reflector on the top. The nice thing about it is it's a transition away from using plastic parts for a cooker. Its predecessor would hit very high degrees, but it was plastic, and a lot of people are really concerned about how much plastic there is in the world. So using this renewable resource of cork is phenomenal. and it works well. I've used it a couple times. Very good for baking. Pretty lightweight for what looks like a kind of a bulky box. It's one of our favorites, actually. And to the left of it is the Solar Oven Society Sport. That's made in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, where I live. It's made out of recycled pop bottles for the outside shell, and then high-tech polyisocyanurate insulation. With the extra reflectors, it can get up to 400 degrees or more. They actually had to switch to aluminum reflectors because too many people were putting the reflectors inside the box, and the reflectors were a plastic flute board, and they would melt. So they switched to aluminum reflectors. They still don't want you to store them inside, but they're much sturdier. I think they reflect a little bit more light inside as well. I was really pleased to find that this was local, and this is probably my 6th or 7th sport from the Solar Oven Society, because it's just so well used, and I've given away to friends and relatives. Right now, they're not in production, but the Solar Oven Society hopes to put them back into production and use them for various causes that they like to participate in for promoting solar cooking throughout the world. To the left of the sport is the Sunspot, which is an interesting box cooker. It's cardboard with aluminized, kind of an aluminized mylar paint on the cardboard. And it's more of a demo model. It can bake. I have never really used it seriously because of just a limited volume and the long time it takes to build up heat. There's no real insulation. It's just one layer of cardboard. But it's a nice little demonstration model for people that are just starting to get into it. Another one that I was able to see at Faro and meet the guy who put it together, David Chalker, the Ugly hybrid. And this is a very interesting concept. It's been around for a little while. The first hybrid I got is actually the Tulsi hybrid, which is effectively the same configuration, just smaller box for cooking inside. Dave Chalker took the design and expanded the inside. I forget what the insulation is, but before I brought it over here into the shade, due to the wind and everything, it was approaching 320 Fahrenheit, or about 160 Celsius. Very high heat in a very short period of time. And it's hybrid, meaning if the sun goes away or the clouds cover up, you can plug it in. It has a heating element, so you can continue cooking into the evening or when there is no sun. I really like it. It's very easy to use. Maybe a little heavy, and the box does hold a lot more volume than many box cookers I have. So therefore, it takes up more of a footprint on our deck, but it's really nice. Let's see, what other box cooker can I look at here? There's one here that's red. I don't know if you can see this. It's one that I actually stumbled on in Las Vegas. United Solar Cooking, or United Solar Energy put this one together. It's fire engine red. It's very narrow cook space. I have not been able to get it above maybe 120, 130 Celsius, but very interesting concept. It just is a big box. You undo the latch on the right, and it's a reflector. I don't dare open it up right now because I've got the panel cooker set up so the wind won't blow them away. If there's any questions, Dave, let me know. Otherwise, I'd probably be about ready to move on to the panel cookers. Okay, the panel cookers. I've got them all arranged up here because it's the place they'd least get blown around by the wind. And first I'm going to show down on the ground here, we have the Cook It. Most of you should be familiar with this. It's been around forever. Solar Box Cookers International, before they changed to Solar Cookers International, it was one of their key products, calling cards, really. Yes.
Lynn would like to know the name of the white cooker again, please.
Sure, it's the Ugly, U-G-L-I. Probably a hint at the word U-G-L-Y, but it's U-G-L-I. Okay, so this first panel cooker, picked this up long ago. Solar Cookers International has produced a lot of them. There's a model online where people can just reproduce it themselves. very efficient design because you can put hundreds or thousands onto a pallet for shipping. And panel cookers, amazingly, they always amaze me when I put something in to cook. I just can't believe some of them, how much power that they collect. But when you look at how much sun this gathers, that's about 800 millimeters wide. And the reflectors are set up so it pretty much catches just about all of the pot that's put inside. And of course, as most of you know, if you've used panel cookers, you have to have a heat trap. A lot of the ones that get shipped include an oven bag, like we just call them a turkey bag here because it's usually meant for turkeys in the oven. But any kind of pot that goes into that cooking bag, or maybe a couple of Pyrex bowls, or in another model that I have, I'll pull over in just a second, there's actually a polycarbonate sleeve that you can set the pot into, and that acts as a heat trap as well. I'll move up to the Sungood cooker. It's the yellow one with just the glass bowl there for a little extra weight. You can see that the design is very similar, fairly wide to capture as much sun over a long period of time without having to move it very much. Very effective. I've had it alongside of the Haynes cooker and the Cookette, and also the Copenhagen, designed by Sharon Clausen. This one I got maybe about a year ago, and it was one of the first that I used some testing equipment on to see how fast it would get a liter of water to boil, and it was very comparable to the Haynes and the Copenhagen. Very nice cooker. To the left of it, another yellow one. This one is the all-season solar oven. It's a reflector or a panel cooker like the others. Jim LaJoy in San Diego was the designer of it. Very popular. It's made of flute board, which is fairly durable, and it's just kind of an aluminized paint on the inside. And like other panel cookers, you use a heat sink to trap the heat, make sure what you cook gets up and cooked. And it also is it's called all season because you can tip it over on its side or forward or backwards, and you can cook any season during the year. You can see on the top, there's a little piece of wood with a dowel. That's so you can focus it, make sure it's pointed as straight to the sun as possible. Like a lot of panel cookers, it probably doesn't need to be moved that much, maybe a little bit more because of the narrow catchment area for the sun. To the left, favorite of a few friends of mine, the Sunflare. This is this green one. It's basically made with the kind of reflectors that you find with windshield covers. I know from driving in the Southwest United States, where it's a lot of desert area, you can hit maybe 30 degrees or more Celsius, 100 or more Fahrenheit. And you need one of these in the windshield to keep the inside of your house from baking up. Literally, it's the car becomes a kind of its own heat sink. Very nice design. I have a friend who has come to my brunches who's, this is one of his favorites. He's able to fit quite a bit of food in there, called the Sunflare. I'm going to pull two other cookers over here. Put them down here just a moment. One on the right, called the Parvati. So I'll get this in there. It's the circle. It's basically two cones of two different angles. And you just set a pot in there, again with a heat trap, maybe an oven bag or a couple of bowls, glass bowls, or even a pot with inside a glass, another glass pot. Very nice, effective cooker for the amount of space that it takes up. It's really amazing, called the Parvati. To the left of it, this is the Roger Haynes cooker, panel cooker. And apologies to Rogers, I had to set it up twice because it kept getting blown away with the wind that we have here. But a very incredible design. I'm sure if I set it up right, it would look more like a bowl and actually a lot like a parabola. Some of the newer panel cookers that are out today they actually can be set up so that they're like a parabola. So they really concentrate a lot of light into a small space where you have your pot. I think this is the 2.0 that Roger's put together. It's much more powerful than his original one. Amazing how these designers, they keep coming up with new and improved models. Again, that's Roger Haynes' cooker. He's in the San Diego area. I'm going to move off to the left here, and if you could turn this toward me. And this is one of our favorite panel cookers. That's the power cord. This one that's folded up, I had to fold it up because it kept getting blown away. It's called the Sun Toys. But just imagine the cook kit. It's exactly, almost exact same shape and everything, but it's made out of the kind of reflective material from windshield cover. Now this one I'm about to show you is Solar Household Energy Inc. Hot Pot. And this is the one that really originally sold me on panel cookers. It's aluminum reflectors with hinges that just fan out like that. And considering the small size, it's just amazing how much heat that builds up quickly. The inside, the cooker part is actually a metal bowl that's fit with a flange over a glass bowl with a glass lid. And invariably, if we want supper of like a stew for 3 or 4 or 5 people, we'll just put that in at about 9 in the morning or so and move it 2 or 3 times, and we'll have stew in time for dinner. Incredible cooker. We put it out every now and again when we do our brunches, especially if we want to have a large quantity and we know there's going to be a lot of people. I do have other panel cookers, but they're not deployed right now. Actually, there's one more that I'd like to show. That's interesting. I found this one online. Another yellow one, plastic with the globe in it. And I'll step over there. What's unique about this is very small. I have yet to really cook with it seriously. But the unique thing about it is,
Luther.
kind of a,
Oh, you're being called.
oh, sorry. Question?
Luther.
Yes.
Vishal is asking what material is used for the reflector, but I'm not sure which cooker he means.
Okay, sure.
Vishal, which cooker? Andre, please turn off your mic.
You can do that. Well, I can start to answer the one I just showed before the one I'm at right now, the Solar Household Energy Hot Pot. That's aluminum, spectral grade aluminum, very rigid aluminum sheets that are connected together with hinges, just regular hinges that are riveted to the reflectors, and they to each other, and they fold together in a really nice compact shape. And the pot itself just sits right in the middle of it, and that helps. All the other ones I showed, they're either cardboard with aluminized mylar, or for instance, the sun flare, that's like windshield cover material. It's plastic with a highly reflective surface. Here I'm going to show you the hot pot reflector again. See how compact that folds up. That's aluminum, spectral grade aluminum, highly reflective, takes up very little space. These two here that are yellow, those are basically, the one is flute board, it's just a regular, I think it's a poly something, I'm sorry, plastic. And the same for the right, I think it's kind of an ABS plastic. It's much more rigid than average without having to be a flute board. So that's, and the reflecting piece is on the sun good on the right there. I'm pretty sure that's aluminized mylar, but a very thick, thick mill, so it holds together really well. This last panel cooker, that's very interesting to me. I was just starting to mention this. This little pad is just kind of a plastic pad with foam. And in the center of it, you can see a rectangle with a bunch of dark bars. Well, as the temperature increases, those bars start to turn color, blue and then possibly green. And the higher the temp, the further to the right it goes. And the temperature grade on this goes up to 90 Celsius or 194 Fahrenheit. I had it up to the 85 Celsius yesterday by adding one more reflector in just a brief test. I can imagine in the height of summer that it would hit all the way across. But this one I don't see out there much anymore. I don't remember even how I ran across it, but as soon as I saw it, I knew it was just kind of unique. I had to have it, and then the bonus was to have that interesting built-in thermometer right into the heat trap or heat sink. Any other questions about panel cookers?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Well, then I'll move on to the parabolics. And first one, I got it not too long after I picked up the box cooker. It's the SK14 by EG Solar, made in Germany at the time anyway. A lot of models that are similar to it. Very impressive for its power. Right now I have beans going in it. In fact, I really should check to make sure they're not burning because they've been in for about 2 hours. They might actually be ready. Still enough liquid in there so I can leave that go for a while. Nice features about the SK14. I'll zoom down closer to the edge here. If you can see the pin here, it's just a bolt. And the way to focus it is you make sure that shadow is as close to directly below that as possible. And if you got to move away for 10, 20 minutes to keep it focused, you just move it ahead a little bit. Or yeah, the other direction here. And eventually you'll catch up with it, and you can adjust up or down, sideways. One thing I really like about this is the frame is very wide, so it's very stable. I've never had any trouble with this with high winds, which is amazing because the reflector is really kind of like a sail, but very high power. It's a meter, meter and 4/10 across, almost a meter and a half across. So all that sun poking right to the bottom of the pan, pretty incredible. The next parabolic, recent favorite, a lot of people I know, the Simplicity, made in France. Alain Biva designed it. He was gracious enough when I visited him after the Consolfood conference to give me his prototype, which is down here below. I didn't dare put it out because it was so windy, but you can tell from the prototype how the genius of the design sprung to life with the actual end product here. Right now we're frying stuff. In fact, it's almost charred. We put it in before we got started, and that's okay. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes the food is actually really good that way.
Luther?
Yes.
You're being asked to show the back side, the back of the SK14.
Sure, I can do that.
I'm not sure which features they want to see.
It's a very solid frame. It's all aluminum, and then it has ribs to hold the parabola in shape, which is really nice because with the aluminum is really flexible. You can see having the ribs there really holds it exactly for when you have a pot in there. The reflection will be right under the pot.
The questioner is interested in how robust it is, how strong.
Sure. I got this in 2006, I think. And just about every brunch that I've had, and whenever we just wanted to cook something quick for ourselves, I've used it. I leave it outside without a tarp It's basically weatherproof. I just turn the reflector totally upside down, so we don't have a fire hazard, because of course with parabolas you can have that hazard if the focal point hits wood, and I've got a large wooden deck that I have all these things on, so I have to turn it upside down. I have a smaller model toward the other end of the deck. I won't bring it up. It looks just like this, only it's half the size, the SK750. And it too, I use it to keep stock boiling, say if I'm making risotto or a stew where I need more stock. It's very sturdy. I can't imagine this thing breaking up. I did put it on its own platform with wheels, so it's just a little easier to move around. That is all I did. I didn't modify it in any way. Very solid cooker. There are many parabolas out there like this, or as solid as far as I can tell, that I don't have. Other parabolas I didn't put out, again because of the wind, but they basically have the same model. Some of them are on tripods, which I find to be not quite as stable, but I really like this model. Here, I'm going to put it back in focus. I have plenty of beans for supper. Okay, and well, back to the simplicity. This one, I got it, and every cooker I get, I'm up to 57 now, I often come up with a checklist of, okay, well, here's what I do to improve it. Here's a difference in materials. I could not find a single thing to change about this. It is very compact. I actually have another one here. This is what it collapses down to. You can bungee cord that to just your average backpack.
There.
9 points. Yes.
Can you hold it a bit higher? It wasn't in frame.
Sure. Oops.
And
sorry.
a bit to the left, away from you. Yep, lovely.
There we go. Is that better?
Yep.
Yep. And it just takes not even a minute to set up. Cooks the volume for 2 or 3 people. Of course, it's not doesn't cook as much volume as the SK14, but you know, for most people on an individual basis, it covers a lot of ground. I mean, you cook this thing so fast that you can do several entrees for a dinner in the space of an hour or 2 hours. So it's one of my favorite cookers. Any other questions on parabolics? I have some others I could wheel over. Okay, there's one. The wind bit the dust. That was a box cooker that had reflectors on the cover. Joe is parting it away so it doesn't hurt anymore. That's by, actually going back to a box cooker, we'll put this one up on the screen. That's Tom Hallquist in Milwaukee designed this one. It's got reflectors attached to a sheet of greenhouse glass, kind of a polycarbonate greenhouse glass. So it's got its own kind of thermal layer. He calls it a slow cooker because there's not a lot of insulation, but it's a very nice model, and it sets on 2x4s with a little gouge in it, so you can tilt it. In fact, that reminds me, I forgot to mention this box cooker, this yellow one down here. If that's in the frame, it's right in the center of the frame. That one I found in Canada 10 or 15 years ago on Craigslist. And it's called the Harvester model, but there are 2 or 3 other companies that make it with different names. It's an ABS plastic body. I don't know what the insulation is, but it'll get up to the 150 Celsius or 300 Fahrenheit range. Behind it are the reflectors that are attached to it. I didn't dare attach the reflectors, partly because of the wind today, but also they tuck into the corners just past the window. And it's really difficult to get them snapped into place. I think partly over time, the reflectors have gotten bent a little bit, but also it's just a very narrow margin, and but a nice cooker, and gets up to really good heat. Very weatherproof. I've had this outside for a couple of years now. Only used it a few times, but it's pretty weather tight. Any other questions on those?
Not at the moment.
Okay. I'm going to cover a couple of miscellaneous cookers that I picked up recently that I think are pretty interesting. this one in the center of the screen, Arliss Walters, he's a retired turkey farmer in the state of Oklahoma. It's pretty much smack dab in the center of the country. And he heats his home with this exact same configuration. It's just copper pipes filled with mineral oil. And he has his heater for the house is maybe about 3 or 4 times as wide as this. And then this is a cooker that hits about 150 Celsius or 300 Fahrenheit. And we typically will put stews in there in the morning. It's set up so that the tubes are just far enough apart where you really don't have to move it around a lot for the sun to heat it up consistently as soon as the sun hits it. Problem, of course, is it's about 300 pounds, very heavy. I had to build a huge frame for it. A dickens of a time getting it so I could move it around on the deck. But I took advantage of the space underneath of it to turn it into a pantry for a lot of the stuff that we use for our solar brunches. So very unique cooker, not a lot of them made out there. He hasn't sold very many. I think the size probably scares most people away. But I like it. And it's nice to have it just to show the variety of cookers when I host my brunches. Okay.
Luther?
Yes.
Is it convenient to go back to the hot pot?
Yes.
Someone is asking where you can get one.
Sure. There's a new company. I don't remember the name of it. Could you put the reflectors on the pot again? Yeah. I apologize. I forget the new name of the company that's selling it. But if you Google solar household energy hot pot, you will probably find the website where the guy is selling it. Probably about 6-8 months ago, I found out that this other company is doing it. Any particular questions about it?
Someone from Spain wanted to know if they could get one there.
I don't know. I don't know if it's available, especially right now. Of course, with the pandemic, I have 2 cookers that are on order that they don't know when they'll be able to ship them. They're paid for and everything, but they don't know if they'll be able to ship them because of all the restrictions right now. I can't imagine this one being a problem if ordered internationally. There's all sorts of money wiring services and PayPal that you can do international orders with. But yeah, if you Google the Hot Pot Solar Household Energy Inc., I think their website actually has reference to the guy who's distributing it now and manufacturing it.
Right. Can we go back to parabolic?
Sure.
You're being asked if you have a Parvati.
Parvati, I do. And this is a matter of terminology. I know I've seen some people say, well, here's the different types of cookers. And this one, some would call it parabolic, and I guess I'd say it's kind of a hybrid between a panel and a parabolic because of the curve. Right. And this is just straight from plans that are online that I forget how long ago I put this together, but that's just aluminized mylar, very effective. I had another one that I started with a nylon shell and then reflective furnace insulation reflective material that my sister helped put together. It wasn't a total disaster. It's actually a kind of a proof of concept thing that works. It's pretty much the same thing like this, only it's based more on a model called the 12 angle double-sided or 12-sided double angle. It's like this, only with flat panels. So yeah, so that's what I have there. I actually have 2 of them. That one's tucked into another one that I painted with some really reflective silver paint, and it did not work nearly as well for generating heat, but still. So that's what I have.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, I covered your Arliss Walters. I think I'm going to try to roll over to. I have 1. I have 2. Vacuum tube cookers. And I hadn't pulled them out. I just ran out of time before coming here, but I can slide it out right now. This one is the Gosan Fusion. And I will set it up here. Okay, hope you can see this. Go-Sun Fusion, it's a trough reflector, basically, and the vacuum tube in the middle. Very large capacity. I could put 2 small bread pans, almost 3, and cook with it fairly fast. It also comes with a solar panel with a power pack that you can generate. You can collect electricity, store it in the battery, and then later on, if the sun goes away or clouds roll in, the trough that you can cook in it with has a heating element kind of pretty well glued to the bottom. And I did use that once with a demonstration at a grade school with some students that were interested in solar cooking. You can see it's a pretty large capacity. There's my hand in there. And it's interesting that it can cook really well with the battery because of the efficiency of the vacuum tube. I think that's a really ingenious idea. Not to mention you have a battery pack for other stuff if you need to charge cell phones and so forth. Very
Luther, you're being asked if you have ever broken an evacuated tube.
No, fortunately. In fact, the other one that I have here, a vacuum tube cooker, right below it, it's the first one I got. I got it through Cantina West, a fellow in Utah who resells cookers. And he said, I don't dare ship them because they came in pallets of 10 or 20 at a time. And when he opened up the pallets, invariably 2 or 3 of them were smashed just from the shipping. And I said, well, I still want one because I'd like to have one for the collection and try it out. And so I happened to be in the area, St. George, Utah, and I picked it up and he showed me the ones that were smashed. So the reason I haven't broken one yet probably is because I don't use them that much. Exactly because I'm pretty paranoid about breaking them. Hearing, what was that? There was some cooking show on some national channel, cable show, where they had a competition with 3 different cooks using these vacuum tube cookers. And one of them tried to cook soup in them, but they let it preheat, put the soup in, the cold soup splashed on the inside and shattered it, of course. And of course, everyone's mocking the chef. Well, everyone knows that's what's going to happen. Well, I don't know. A lot of people that buy this maybe aren't going to recognize that. Or my example is you're at the beach playing volleyball, and your buddies think they're being helpful. They're going to refocus it. Well, it hasn't come up to heat, and the water sprays on the inside, and now you got a shattered inside of the tube. So,
Yeah.
no, I've been fortunate, but part of it is I'm extremely careful. Like right now, I'm actually a little nervous having it on this cart. What with the wind being what it is, obviously one already losing its reflector. So no, I haven't. But boy, do I recognize the hazard.
Right. You're also being asked the prices of the cookers.
Sure, I can
How
do
much
some
you would
general.
pay.
Yeah, I can talk general about actually a lot of them. I'll start back to where I originally started. The Sun oven there, that one I picked up for probably 250, 10, 15 years ago. It's in the 300 to 350 range, which would be what, about 400 euros? I forget what the exchange rate is. But that's it's a very sturdy cooker. This one is actually their recent one with a better stick in the back. It's more stable. It's got a crossbar, so it's a lot less likely to tip over sideways. The Sun Taste, I think that was on the order of 250, maybe 300 euros. To the left of that, the Solar Oven Society Sport. I originally got that for in the $220, $250 range. It's now closer to $300. The Sunspot, that cardboard box thing, that's probably like $25. Like I say, it's more like a science kit for school. The yellow panel cooker, the brother there, probably, I think I paid $80 for that. Maybe 100 for the one on the left of that, the all-season cooker by Jim LaJoy. The Sunflare, I've seen 100 to 150. A lot of these, of course, on eBay, you sometimes can find them for half price. Often, if I see a Solar Oven Society Sport for under $100, I really consider getting one because it's just very nice to have extras around. The Ugly down here, David Chalker's model. I don't remember exactly. I'm going to guess it was $300, maybe a little less. I forget. I'd have to look at my. Actually, I don't know. I don't have it on my sheet. I used to have a sheet with the prices on it. But what else? The SK14. That one I picked up probably for $450 or $500 back in '06. Yeah, and I don't think it's changed that much. It probably goes up and down with the price of aluminum. The Simplicity is on the order of $280, $300, I think. Interesting situation, when I first ordered it, the price quoted included the value-added tax, which apparently didn't apply for shipments to the US. So it ended up being the shipping was about the same price. So I kind of felt like I got a discount. But let's say about $300 or 350 euros, maybe a little less. But also, I recommend everyone Google these cookers, and you'll find the current prices if they're still being sold.
Luther.
Yes.
While you're facing that way,
yes.
Just beyond the SK14, there's, I'm not sure, is it a Sunflare?
Oh, to the right of it?
Yes.
That is the Solar Chef.
Oh, yes.
That is a classic cooker from the 1990s. Sam Irwin is the inventor. He's in Washington State. Actually, he just passed away. He's in Oregon and then Washington State. And currently, the Solar Chef International has the rights in Lubbock, Texas, and they're hoping to reproduce it and the next model up that he had designed called the Starflower, which is a little larger, but it's the reflectors are collapsible. This is one solid model. Those are glass mirrors. It's a glass octagonal dome that goes over the cook space area, but it's an amazing cooker that catches so much sun. It'll get up into the 400 Fahrenheit, 180 Celsius, 200 Celsius, I think, actually. Very efficient setup with the reflectors. We like it a lot because of the ease of use. It's so low to the ground, and you just grab that dome, put your pot in, and put the dome back on. And at the very top, you can maybe make out the dowel. That's how you focus it. If the shadow pretty much disappears, it's facing straight toward the sun. I should mention behind it is, yeah, we can go a few feet forward here.
Okay.
There we go. The green cooker there, it's a box cooker. You can make that out. Yeah, between the SK14 and the Solar Chef, that's the Sun Stove. And I should just mention, I don't dare get much closer because I'm almost out of Ethernet cable for my computer. But I can get this close. And I'll actually drag it over here because it's a very interesting concept. That's the Sun Stove. It was designed by Richard Wareham, and he had them made primarily in South Africa. And the company that kept making them literally closed shop in February, which is really sad. They have a model that's got a blown plastic body with use a lot of recycled plastic. But this model, what appealed to me is the outer shell and the inside reflector are both recycled printing plates. They're a standard size printing plate. I actually have one right here. And the reason I like it, besides being a theater major, and it makes a really good thunder sound when you have a storm scene, you basically draw this pattern on it, and the dotted lines are where you snip, and the solid lines are where you crimp, and then you just populate it all together, and you've got the shell.
We can't see what you're doing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was holding it for the computer. Here's the printing plate. It's a standard size plate. I actually have a friend from my congregation who owned a printing company, and anytime I want some, I just drive over there and they give me 10 or 20 of them. I have 40 of these sheets in the porch ready to make into this exact model of sun stove to give away at my solar brunches. I don't just want to promote the idea of solar cooking, but if they can walk away with from my brunch with an actual cooker, great. And all you do is you make 2 of these, make sure the reflective side is pointing out from in the inside box. He recommends painting the bottom black, which we heard that Consolfood was one of the better configurations for building up heat. And then the rest you leave, because then that's reflection on the inside. And it's just a plexiglass cover. Of course, you can make it with regular glass. I plan to make them with actually recycled windows. We had a whole lot of old windows at our house. You can see our old house here. Amazing how many dozens of windows you have in a house like this. Anyway, what? Oh, yeah, okay. We'll finish this one and then we'll show another cooker that's up in, actually almost in the window. But anyway, back to the sun stove. The idea Richard Wareham had was every country, they might be resource poor, but they all have printing presses. Even if it's a dictatorship, the dictator's got to print propaganda. So they have plenty of those. They wear out anywhere from 1 printing, depending on how complex it is, up to maybe 10 printings. They wear out, and then they do recycle them. But they're perfect size for a box cooker. And like I say, that sheet that I showed you, that has the template on it for me to be able to draw the lines, and we can have people actually build them at my brunches. Joe reminded me, I don't know if you can see this, I'm going to try to get it in the camera, up on the 2nd floor of our house. If you see that orange spot with the little green tarp over it, that's the sun dish. The great thing about the sun dish is it'll cook with a tiffin pot, very efficient for a little bit of space. You can put, sorry, we got fire trucks going around here, and our dogs next door just are sympathetic. We'll let that, but I'll keep going. Sun dish, Milan Kulkarni put this together. I got it from India. Very solid fiberglass bowl that's kind of eccentric circles from top to bottom. So and it's all reflective on the inside. I believe it's spectral aluminum. And then it's a polycarbonate tube with a lid, and then you put the tiffin on the inside. So that's 3 stacked pots. You maybe have seen it recently on the Worldwide Network Facebook pages, with it cooking cake and stew and all in one thing. You can do a meal for 2 or 3 people at once with it. Cooking time anywhere from 1 hour to 2 hours. It's on a swivel on the platform, so you basically point it toward about where the sun will be halfway through the cooking. And we did find that if you're going to do cakes, you do want to rotate the tiffin a little bit because it will char on one side. That's how powerful it is. A lot of the concentrated light. The reason I say it's such a wonderful thing is us first ground floor people. We have a house, so we got our own yard and so forth. There are how many more people in the world live in apartment buildings and condos, the high rises? Well, they don't have a real opportunity to do solar cooking in their home. Well, this gives them the total opportunity, at least if they have a equator-facing window. So an excellent design. It feels like it's going to last forever. Really sturdy frame, solid platform that just bolts to the wall. So that's another unique cooker I was able to pick up.
Luther.
Yes.
What is the name of it? The cooker.
Okay, it's called the Sun Dish, and Milan Kulkarni, Kulkarni, I think is how you spell his last name. I forget. I think it's Ensemble Systems. I might have that wrong, but he's the guy who put it together. We've used it 3 or 4 times already this year. So.
We also have a question about the offset litho printing sheet.
Yes.
Somebody said they didn't see it properly,
Okay. Well,
but
here, Joe is getting it again. We'll. Okay.
There we are. Down a bit. That's it.
Yeah.
These are used in printing, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's for it's an ink. It uses ink, and the one side gets the ink, and the other side just stays like that, where it's a soft glow, kind of reflective. It's not a perfect polish, but you can polish it too. I've seen sites where you can do it, but they recommend there's actually kind of a glazing on that the silvery side, which protects it for a while. And of course, the other side is pretty much weatherproof from the ink of the printing that goes along with it.
Right.
Yeah.
You're being asked to show the Suncook box cooker.
The Suncook.
I think that's the Portuguese one, isn't it?
Is that the plastic one or the Sun Taste?
I forget.
Is it?
The one with the cork. You've shown us the cork one.
Yep.
Have you got the plastic one?
Yes, I do. In fact, I'm zooming in on it right here.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll get it set up here. Yeah, this is a very, very powerful box cooker. The only problem I had was I got it and I opened up the box and I just felt like I'd stepped inside a new car because of the plastic. It'll last a good long time. It'll probably last forever. It's probably recyclable plastic, but it just always bothers me if something's a lot of plastic. But that's why I like the fact that they moved to the Sun Taste with the cork, so they have a renewable material for it. It's got one extra reflector that goes on the sides, so you can get a little more sun into it. Typically 300 Fahrenheit, 150 Celsius, pretty much on average. It's gotten up to probably maybe 200 Celsius once. Very effective cooker.
Luther, while we're on the subject of box cookers, you're being asked whether you've ever had any problems with double glazed glass and cracking of the inside pane of glass.
No, actually. Well, I take it back. I don't think I can show it from here, but it'll be in the PowerPoint that I believe we're going to be sharing with people who've signed up. I set up a box cooker through the wall cooker for my garage, and I used a double pane, but they're both Lexan, which is a plexiglass, and at least the inside pane has crackled from the heat. And I noticed when I first set it up to give it a, have it heat through to kind of get it settled in place, that it did off gas somewhat the first couple times I opened it up to test it. But not with glass panes. I haven't had that problem with glass panes, and I've done double pane glass covers for my Halcyon models. The ones that I gave to our nieces and nephews, they were all double panes, which I felt saved 20 or 30 degrees Fahrenheit every time that I cook. So another 10 or 15 degrees power. But never had any problem with them breaking.
You're going back to the GoSun Fusion.
Okay.
You're being asked whether it's possible to somehow buy the heating element, which is under the tray.
I believe you could. GoSun has a pretty extensive catalog of parts They recently, I believe, sold just the tube for people who just wanted the tube. I don't know what that meant if the sales of the whole cookers were down, but they still had all the parts. But I think you can get pretty much all the replacement parts from GoSun.
Okay.
Any other questions? I could try to bring a couple other cookers into view. Okay, well, I'm going to bring one a little bit further forward so it's easier to see. Just take a second. I'm actually not sure what type of cooker to call this, but it's basically kind of a box cooker on a stand. It's the Mueller solar technique. I think it's a Bernie Mueller. Do I have that right? With a slightly trough-shaped reflector on the bottom, and then underneath, I don't know if you can see that, but there's plexiglass where the light gets reflected up to the pot, and then there's a space there where you can put a barbecue thermometer to see how hot it gets. I have had not very good luck with this, partly because it seems like the configuration is ideal closer to the equator, where you get more of the sun direct overhead. But I have thought of putting it on maybe stilts so I could have the sun grabbed a little at a lower angle up here at 45 degrees north here in Minneapolis. I got that as a kit and I was able to put it together. Very nice. The nice thing about the design is it tells you this is an appliance. That's what I like about a lot of the cookers, especially box cookers. The more they kind of look like, okay, that's familiar, like my oven inside my kitchen. I think more people are attracted to that. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's a few. Bernie is mentioning that this is called the Primrose cooker.
Yes, Primrose.
You mentioned that, yeah.
Yep.
He used to sell that in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Also, going back to the Portuguese cookers,
Sure.
You're being asked whether they're similar in performance.
I would say that I haven't gotten putting the cork cooker out like in June when we have the highest sun. When I've had the cook up, it's gotten up to 350 Fahrenheit, 175, I think, Celsius. I haven't quite gotten past 300 Fahrenheit or 150 Celsius with the cork cooker, but I expect it to get higher temps during the summer. The other possibility is I might consider adding another reflector or two. I hate to alter any of the cookers that I have because I want to let the brunches show them as they've been made. But I'm thinking maybe another reflector or two might actually make that cork cooker work a little better. Zoom in a little closer to that. Other questions?
Yeah, you're being asked whether you think the sun dish on the side of your house is dangerous, a danger of falling food, or I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good question. I know that one model of it and a similar one I've seen put on the rail of a balcony. The one they actually have, I think the picture I saw, they actually had a like chicken wire underneath. So on the event that something might fall, that it would be caught. But the rest have been posted just inside the balcony of apartments. In this case, it's directly over one of our rose bushes. So at least we won't hurt any individuals if anything happens to it. Joe is bringing the tiffin that comes with it. I'm gonna back up to it again.
Luther,
Yes.
you're being asked about how you use the Wonder Bag, the retained heat bag that someone can see.
Sure, I'm glad
to
you
the
asked.
right of the picture now.
Yeah, I'll hold it up. I have not used that one in particular, but I'll show you what I have done. There's the Wonder Bag. And speaking of the sun dish, when Milland shipped it to me, it came in this crate. You can see this crate with, I think this, is that showing there?
I'm not sure what you're pointing at.
It's, I'll put it a little closer.
Up a bit, up, left. Oh, you're showing us the crate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. What I did with that is it was such a huge crate and really nice solid plywood hinges, bolts and so forth that actually came on wheels. And I thought, well, I got to make use of it. And with presenting at farmers markets, at our neighborhood community garden, I felt like it'd be a good thing to store like dishes and silverware and glasses and so forth. But then it occurred to me I could line it with just a whole bunch of old rags. And if you see the yellow circle there, that's the lid that will go over. In fact, I might as well put it in there now because it's pretty well done cooking. That's a retained heat slot just for this size pot. It'll take me a little bit here, but Joe's assisting with the videography here. This is beans. Oh, it's pretty well already absorbed, but I'll put it in there anyway. And you can see that I made a bunch of slots where I can put in canning jars, a couple of small pots, and also that big pot of beans right just now. I probably should have put it in there an hour ago because it was already at a rolling boil for about an hour. So I do want to make the Wonder Bag. It's beautiful. It'll fit a huge pot, and eventually I'll make use of it. I think I got it toward the end of last year's brunch season, and so I didn't have a chance to use it for that. And this year, of course, we've got the whole pandemic thing. And I'm debating how we could possibly set up our backyard so that we could have people enter from the back and walk to a dining area where everything would all be set up with their silverware and dishes and so forth. And I would do all the cooking on the right side, and maybe we could still hold them up. I don't know. But I would definitely make use of the crate to retain heat and continue cooking during the brunches. On the opposite side of it, I actually have I used some blackboard paint so I could put the menu on. I could say, here's what's being cooked and what cooker is being used, so we can educate people at the same time that they're getting fed.
Okay, Luther, you're being asked how many different models of cooker you have and whether you have compiled a list of them with their prices and sources and histories and so on.
Yes, I have. As of today, I have 57 individual distinct cookers, some of which I have 2 or more of. For instance, the Sun Oven, I have 2. I've got 2 Simplicities. I have 2 of the Solar Oven Society Sports. So like a total of about 65, 66 cookers maybe, but 57 unique models. I have a list which includes what I paid for them. I put it together. It started it a couple of years ago because I realized my collection had grown to the point where I might want to get it insured. And so I better start documenting, how did I purchase it? How much did it cost? What kind of value it might have. And I'm happy to share that with people. I also use that spreadsheet to keep track of if I've used the cooker long enough. I kind of have an informal rating system. up to 5 suns, I call it. And the cookers that do the best with the best design, I give 5 suns. The ones that might have some small problems with them, but they still cook really well, would be 4. If it's like 2 or 1 sun, it's like, well, it'll cook, but maybe there's like the plastic issue. Maybe it's all plastic and so forth. I really want to discourage that, even though they might cook fairly well. And then 0 suns, of course, they don't cook. I've only had one that I ordered that it just did not perform at all. I don't know what happened, if I set it up wrong. But pretty much all of them cook to a certain degree. And I'd happy to share that with anyone. I think was my email address up there on one of the first slides? If so, feel free to email me and I'll email the list.
Yes, it is. Luther, you're being asked quite a difficult question.
Okay.
Which is, what is your favorite solar cooker? and which do you use most?
Sure. Well, I do hesitate to say that because I don't want to discourage or limit the sales of really good cookers that are out there. But I have to say, and I think anyone that's seen my posts on the Facebook pages, I've been really smitten with the Simplicity for a bunch of reasons. It's just, it's like the hot pot, where you look at it and you think, well, that doesn't seem like it could cook very fast or cook with a lot of heat. But it never ceases to amaze me. I'll put something out and figure, well, it'll be a half hour, 45 minutes. I'll be out there and it's already starting to get crusty on the bottom in 20 minutes or so. So very powerful. Being someone who likes to camp out, it's eminently portable. Being concerned about the environment, there's just the one little focusing mechanism that's just a little sliver of plastic. Otherwise, it's entirely recyclable metal. It's durable. This thing, you'd have to put it under a truck to kill it. A little dent in the reflector, you just bend it back. Any part snaps out, like the hinges for the pins for the hinges. It's just a little bit of wire and you got it back in operation. So that it's one of the few cookers that I give 5 suns. It's just, it performs as better than advertised, I think. The only modification I've made isn't really a modification so much as I put together a kind of a grill to put into the circle. Here, I'll switch it over here so I can show you. In fact, I meant to do this before I started. I could have some espresso, but I got a little behind with all the wind blowing things around. So I don't know if you can see that, but just putting a little grill. That's just a cooling rack that I snipped up with tin snips, bent it in place so it's pretty much level, and then it's a little bit lower than the bottom of the ring. And it cooks like any other parabolic that I have for espresso. Any pot that's a little smaller than the ring itself will fit in there. So I just love it. And after meeting Alain, who invented it, just the brilliant creativity that went into it, the forethought about making sure it was all recyclable. It's being made without shipping it to countries where they abuse labor. Just everything about it appeals to me. Most of the other cookers have, 99% of those same facets, but there's not a wasted piece of material on it. The price, it's a little bit up there if you look at it from the standpoint of just dollars and cents, but it's going to last forever. And just incredible design. So I guess I'd say in each category, this would be my favorite parabolic just for the flexibility of it. And then the box cooker, the Sun Oven, and the Solar Oven Society Sport, I'm just used to them, so maybe I'm a big fan of them. But all the box cookers that are coming out now, like the Sun Taste with pork, that's incredible. I really like the movement that's happening there. The panel cookers, hot pot, I would say everyone should have a hot pot. Large volume, takes up a very little space, pretty portable. But any panel cooker with maybe a Pyrex bowl, clam kind of shell thing, those work really well. Oh, there is one other parabolic I totally forgot. The Sun Flash that I picked up in Oregon. I'll put the camera toward it. Getting a little cluttered here. Just a little more towards. Yeah, there we go. I was out in the middle of the yard. If you can see the sun flash, it's just above the orange buckets. Yeah, that should be in focus. That was made in the 1990s, I think. Zomeworks. I think the name is Steve Baer, B-A-E-R. And I saw that in Joe Radabau's book, Heaven's Flame, which is one of my favorite books about solar cooking. And I thought, well, I got it. Once I started collecting, I said, well, that's one I got to get. And it took maybe 10 years of Googling before I finally found someone who was willing to just give it to me if I drove out and got it. And that was Jennifer Stein Barker out in Oregon. Incredible. Drove out there, had a great meal with them, great catching up on. They're almost totally off the grid home. Here's the book, by the way, if you can get it on Amazon, eBay, and so forth. If you can see it. Heaven's Flame, Joe Radabau. This is the closest thing to an account of the recent history of solar cooking that there is out there. But the nice thing with the sun flash is it maybe isn't easy to see. I don't know, Joe, if you want to go down there and tip it so it you undo both of the bolts a little bit and tip it so it's totally facing toward sunrise. It goes sunrise to sunset. It's just like the SK14 where the parabola will go straight toward the horizon in focus in the morning, so you can already start building up energy to cook. And then it has a three-pronged, kind of a trident thing that holds a pot or holds two, what I have in there are two Pyrex bowls with a silicone gasket that I made just to seal it up nice and tight. Used it 3 or 4 times, works very well. Focusing is really simple. You just look at the shadow. If the pot is in the center of the light going through the hole in the reflector, it's in focus. It's more than enough in focus. It's a deep parabola, so it's the fire hazard is virtually nil. I think this is one that Joe Radabau recommended as one that should be used in parks and national parks, campgrounds, where people could just cook in it right there. It could be on a post, so it's away from tinder. If it's for a fire hazard, you just have it around a bed of rocks and it's not a fire hazard. So this is a really nice one, nice classic one that's not being made anymore. I actually met Steve Baer maybe 10, 15 years ago when I first tried to find one. And there's been at least one other person that has one that's been posting on the Facebooks. He really loves it. He's had it for years. Anyway, so that's another parabolic cooker.
Luther, you're being asked whether you have any of the Indian Prince parabolic cookers.
No, I don't, but I do have the Tiny Tech, which I think at one time was either made by the same company, or I know it came from India. That's on loan to my sister's house at the other end of our block. Very nice parabolic. It's a kind of the flat. It's a rectangle, but with the parabola shape for the reflectors. Very easy to use, low slung, so anyone can reach in to put the pot and so forth. I don't have it here, but I think it's definitely smaller. The Prince is larger, right? Maybe 2 meters around.
Yeah, about 4 square meters, the Prince 40, isn't it?
That sounds right. Yeah, the Tiny Tech is maybe 1.5 meters square.
Yeah, Luther, you're being told off for leaving the clips off the edge of the Simplicity reflector.
Oh, was that allowed?
But also congratulated for reusing that crate where you're
No, that crate, that came in handy at the first harvest of our neighborhood's community garden, which is set in a school where the kids learned about solar cooking. I could put the menu on it. We could have all the dishes in there. It was very nice. But yeah, the clips for the Simplicity, unless it gets really windy, like even today with the wind, it doesn't seem to distort it too much. I think it's very handy when you have a real stiff breeze out in an open field. But I just glance at it from the side. You might have been able to see earlier with the, it's actually still there, but it's pointed toward us, the sun flash. It's actually a little bit warped because there's no rim around the side, around the edges, the outside edge of the parabola. So it's a little distorted, but it's not distorted enough to really affect the performance that much. And I think the same for the Simplicity. The 3 hinges that go with it are give it enough rigidity, so when it's even when it's windy, it doesn't seem to be a problem. Whoops, covered by the. There we go. And of course, I didn't put any espresso in that espresso maker yet, so I better take it off. I don't know if it'll blow up. Any other questions?
You're being asked by Ashok to show your book, to show his book.
Oh,
I don't know whether you had an agreement about that.
well, I do have his book, and it's a great book. It's in a stack of books that I have constantly by my bedside because I used it to look for models that I didn't have in my collection yet. So it's very helpful that way.
Okay. Also, Buzino wants to know whether you have an umbrella cooker.
I actually do, and I was going to set it up, and it was just when the wind picked up, and I just didn't dare. But I actually have two, one from Korea, and then one that Alan sent me back with from Albi, France. I have the box. I was just about to open the box. Believe me, it's in here. But there are two. I do have two umbrella models, parasol models, and I can't wait to try them out. I know that they seem to be real effective from the videos I've seen and from people that have used them.
I think you can see the windsock.
Other questions?
Not right now.
Okay. I'm trying to think of how I might try to put together my friend. Actually, I'm going to roll toward us and have Joe move the camera to show the California Sunlight Fresnel cooker. That's the only type I haven't shown thus far. Take a couple minutes, about a minute.
I think this is one that many people won't have seen, Luther.
Many people won't have seen it.
Yep. Okay.
I think it's focused.
Yep, that's good.
That's good. That's California Sunlight, invented by Dr. Bing Gu. There are a couple of videos he has online of it at a solar cooking festival or some festival in the Sacramento area where he's based. Incredible cooker. For one big reason is Fresnel lenses, for people who've ever used them for cooking, to make cookers, they're even more hazardous than parabolics as far as a fire hazard. I could do it right now because we got sun, but I don't want to set my deck ablaze. Literally, I can hold it to where the focal point gets down to about an inch, and the deck will start smoldering, and within a couple seconds, it would burst into flames. Very high power. Well, the amazing thing that has happened with Bing here is two things, but the main thing is it's fully enclosed with a reflective aluminum body, good and solid. So the focal point, if it doesn't quite hit the circle at the bottom that goes into the cook box on the left, it won't go anywhere else. In other words, it's safe. It's not going to set your house on fire. So that's probably the main thing, because safety is first with these Fresnel lenses. The other thing is, and I'll pull it out. It comes with solar panel tracker. In the upper right corner, you might see two small bolts, and I'll show you the tracker right here. Basically, this flange gets bolted to the upper right corner of the cooker. block the sunlight going in, but it will turn two worm gears, one that does horizontal movement and the other one to go up and down. And all you have to do is get it set up so the shadow from the flanges here are equal on the four panels once you hook up the electrical. And then you tilt the thing so that you can see the shaft of light going right into the circle.
Luther,
of this kind of trapezoidal funnel.
Luther, we can't hear you
Luther.
very well for some
sorry.
reason.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm stepping too far away. The other major thing is the tracker, which I'll show in the camera, and I'll talk from here. Let's see if we can. You can see the tracker. Basically, it is set up so that if the shadow from the flanges is the same size on each of the solar panels at the bottom, that tells the worm gear that it's in focus. So you set up the cooker so that it's in focus, meaning you can see the circle of light that Fresnel lens generates down in the bottom left corner of this trapezoidal shaft. And then you plug in this the tracker, and then it'll hold it at that. It'll move it a micron every time the shadow shifts a little bit on one or two of the solar panels. So it's pretty much automatic. The only problem I've had with it is there's a little bit of play with the worm gears that move it around. And the closer to sunset you get, like right about, I don't know, maybe even 2 or 3 in the afternoon, the weight of the cooker on each of the axes tips it a little faster than the tracker can keep up with. So it can sometimes get out of focus, but think it's in focus. But it's not bad. It actually works, and it gets to incredible temperatures, 450, 500 Fahrenheit, or 250 Celsius. It's incredible. The box on the left is just a enclosed box with a hole that meets up with the hole at the other side where the light goes through. So it's an incredible design. Like I say, first off for safety, and second for being able to track automatically. In conversations I had with them when I first visited, I didn't think about it until I got home, and I emailed them, and I'm thinking it might not hurt for it to have a couple of cranks where you could do it manually. It's great to have that technology, but like I say, with a little bit of play here and there in some of the parts, it can maybe stays in focus for an hour, hour and a half, but then it kind of slightly gets off and you have to adjust it again. Whereas if you just had the cranks, it'd be just like a parabolic where every 5 minutes or so you would put it back in focus. But a brilliant execution of a design. I really like it.
Okay, thanks, Luther. We're just discussing maybe winding up in the next 5-10 minutes.
Sure.
You've given us a pretty comprehensive view of your collection, the ones you
Thanks.
have with you. I'm wondering if anyone has any more questions they'd like to put to you. Someone says, are there any downsides to the California Sunrise cooker?
The expense, it is pricey. It's about, this one was a 32-inch Fresnel for $1,000. The workmanship, craftsmanship that went into it definitely make it worthwhile. But that's up there, that's beyond your average, basic Amana range in your house. So that might scare people away. But there's no downside otherwise, because the cook box, as you could see, it was about maybe 2 feet cube. You can fit a pretty big box, a pretty big pot in it. It also has a heat sink, a bent flange of cast iron that you can set the pot on. And so you can preheat it with that, which really helps retain the heat. I don't know if the box is insulated much, but it generates such high heat, it almost doesn't matter. The only downside really would be, just like with a parabolic, once the cloud rolls over, then the power source pretty much cuts off. But otherwise, it's really nice. I like it.
Okay, you're being asked how you organize your solar brunches.
Sure. They were. It was 2 years ago that I held 1 or 2 of them just to kind of test the waters, because at that time, about 5 years, I figured before I would retire, and I would just do it more frequently. So what I do is I've just gathered names and emails of people who are interested in it, kept track of them, and invite them every time the forecast for Sunday or for Saturday is for good sun on Thursday. I like to joke that we live in the variety weather belt here in the Midwestern United States. The forecast on Wednesday could be for full sun on Saturday, and it would rain all day. So you really got to wait till there's about a 48-hour window, and it gets to be pretty accurate. Then I send out an email blast, invite everyone to come anytime. I call it the brunch, only because it starts around 10 a.m. But I go till 2 or 3 in the afternoon, or as long as people want to stay. I encourage them to bring their own food to cook. And then I say, here's the appropriate cooker for it. We put it in, and they can see their own food being cooked. My favorite story from it is we have a couple about 3-4 blocks away with 2 daughters. The first brunch they came to, they brought 2 eggs, 1 egg each. And we had them cook it, each their own egg in the simplicity. And it was fun. But I knew they were hooked when the next brunch, before the parents even came in with them, the one of the daughters comes bounding up the ramp with a batch of cookie dough, ready to cook cookies. So she was already ready for the next level. So last year, I think I had 8 or 9 of them, anywhere from 1 or 2 people up to 15. That's not 15 all in one sitting, but maybe 2 now and 3 the next hour and 7 the next and so forth. But just very low key, low pressure. Any questions they have about cookers, I'm right there to answer them. I think the second or third brunch, one of our neighbors actually went out and bought a Simplicity. I did find out about it for a couple months, but it was sold. So that's pretty much it. I've expanded to where one of the neighbors is part of a zero waste and climate change action group here in Minneapolis, and she will forward it to her list. And so I've had guests come that way too, indirectly. At the harvest for our community garden, I put out a sign-up sheet. Probably 15, 20 people signed up. I think 2 or 3 of them were able to make it to a brunch later on. And my plan was to go to farmers markets and these open street festivals this year. That's kind of on hold with the pandemic. But like I say, I think I could host a fairly safe social distancing kind of setup and still have brunches here. I just have to figure out how to set up the flow for people to come in and so forth. But that's pretty much it. It's grassroots. It's very local. I posted on the Minnesota Solar Cookers Facebook page, which is about half of the people from the Midwest area and half from all over the world. So only 1 or 2 maybe from that list can make it. But I do what I can. And I just have a gas. One of my neighbors said, "You look like the mad scientist running around," because I had 6 or 7 cookers going. And I think I felt more like that guy. I don't know if any of you know the Ed Sullivan Show with the guy putting the plates on the rods, and he's going around for 5 minutes spinning these plates, making sure they don't fall and crash. It feels more like that, but it's very, very, it's just a whole lot of fun, educational. So that's what I do for them. And the other side of our yard here is where we host. Joe has set up, already put out the lawn chairs or deck chairs, just so that we could have our own family stuff, but also if we can get the brunches going again. I don't know if you see Joe there. Give him a panoramic. One thing I haven't done yet, but I should, if you see right behind the sun flash, there's a big green pole. That's my father-in-law's ham radio antenna. Maybe we'll put out the word that way. I don't know if they allow that. I can have him do that. He might be back here at the end of May, and we might be able to promote it that way. That kind of cover it. I really encourage people to do that. You should do it in your own neighborhood, in your own building. I remember in Faro, I did a kind of a roundtable on how people promote solar cooking in their community. And the one comment was, well, we live in an apartment building, so we really can't do much about it. And I was able to say, well, here's a Millen Kulkarni's sun dish. So yes, you can do the cooking from your 15th floor if you want, but also maybe there's a plaza or so forth. I mean, you never know. I don't think there's any segment of the population that can't be reached out to. And there's still a lot of room to get the word out. There's still too many people that, well, I kind of heard about that when I was a Boy Scout and they did the little hot dog cooker, but they didn't think it's like really serious business, serious science behind it, serious cause. That's one reason I've gotten into it as deeply as I have, is I've always have a concern about the environment. And it's just a win-win situation for promoting solar cooking. So many problems that are mitigated or solved due to it. So hope that kind of covers it. It's I actually, and I have I'll send it to Celestino and the rest. I have just a little guide I put together on how to host them. It's just the way I do it. You can do any variation you want. When I retire, it won't just be Saturdays. I'm hoping that if, say, Tuesday, I see that Thursday is sunny, I'll put out the word then too, because I just really want to get the word out.
Thanks, Luther. Thanks very much for showing us all of your cookers and all your insights into how you use them and so on. I think we're drawing to a close now. So thank you very much, and bye-bye, and give a little wave. And
thank you so
bye
much.
for now.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks.
Yes. Please let me say a few more words before we close this. Luther,
Sure.
thank you very much, you and Joe, for assisting you.
Yes.
Now you have the opportunity, because this group of listeners creates a perfect situation for networking. They are all aficionados, and now if you need any help for coming closer to your idea of a museum, what do you ask for? How can they help you?
Sure. I'm glad you mentioned it. It's we originally, when I started collecting, we joked about our backyard being a museum, but probably about a year or two ago, I thought, well, I've been to museums that aren't really very formal. Some of them don't even really have a permanent space, but they're really incredible. I remember one about the history of radio in Bellingham, Washington, of all places. Incredible. And it's just a storefront mishmash of stuff, but you learn so much. And so my thinking is there's certainly a better place in the US or in other continents where there's more sun or more reliable sun, where something like this should be located. But in the meantime, I welcome any ideas for how we should go about actually setting up something like that. I've had conversations with Solar Cookers International. They came back with some really good ideas. Solar Oven Society, they mentioned some ways to at least spark interest in it. For instance, we have a really incredible science museum in the Twin Cities area where they will do shows where they feature kind of niche science stuff like this. And so ideas like that, anything where people have really want to put something like that together where it's a little more formal, a little more structured. I'm just loose leaf because I majored in theater. I'm used to improvisation. But I'd really like to see this become a more of a permanent reality, something that could be open every possible day. I'm thinking for the United States area, if we should have one on every continent or every country, really. In the US, it would have to be in the Southwest where they have 300 days or more with sun. You could pretty much rely on it. So just any ideas people have, share them with me. I'm all ears. I really don't have any idea how to move forward. I do like the idea of it being kind of like what I have here, which is kind of like a sculpture garden, because it should be outside. After all, we're talking about sun, the power of the sun. But I don't want to think too limited. Whatever ideas people have, feel free to email them to me.
Great. Yes, thank you. One sentence to the audience. We mentioned that we had a plan B in case it would have rained, and Luther has set up a PowerPoint, and transformed it into a PDF, and a few minutes ago I uploaded it to our Consolfood website. So if you want to see most of these cookers, more than 40 I think, with the name, the picture, the designer and so on, you can download it right now from our website. Luther, thank you very much. I'm happy that I had the right idea inviting you for our webinar. I never experienced anything like this before.
Oh, well, it's
yeah.
You
are really a big source of inspiration to all of our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope people can try doing the same. It's actually the collecting part is as much fun as the using.
Yes, of course. Okay, so I think if there is anybody who wants to say something, Celestino, Dave, from
Yes.
my side, I think we can close. Thank you all.
Yes. Muito obrigado, Luther.
Shoot. I used to know how to say you're welcome. I was in Faro. You're very welcome. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Luther. Thank you, all participants. We soon are planning to organize the fourth webinar. Okay?
Fine.
Great.
You are welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye to everybody.
Goodbye.